Hello everyone, today we're going to do the timing belt and water pump, including cam and crank seals on a 2007 Toyota Solara with a 3.3 liter V6. This is the 3MZ-FE engine, and this very same power plant is installed on a number of different platforms from Toyota, such as the Lexus ES330, the Solara, the Camry, the Avalon, the Sienna, and the Highlander. So that being said, let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is create a number of access points for this job so that we can get the job done. We're gonna disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. We're gonna remove engine mounts, upper strut stabilizer bar. We're gonna remove the right side front wheel, and there is an inner shroud to access the bottom of the engine. So let's go ahead and do that. So far we've removed the upper stabilizer bar that goes across the upper struts. We disconnected the battery, the negative terminal. We obviously jacked up the car to make it comfortable ourselves to work. We removed the front right wheel. And next, we continue with the access. What we'll do is we're gonna remove the front engine mount, and we're gonna remove this shroud. Pro tip for you guys, especially if you've never done this before, take pictures of everything as you disassemble so that you know how everything goes back together. It'll be of huge help for you guys, believe me. Next, we removed the engine mount. That goes right there, and right there, and right there. These are 12 and 14 millimeter bolts. I would strongly recommend you put all this hardware back where you got it so that you don't lose anything, just like I put the nuts back on the strut. We also moved the coolant tank out of the way to give ourselves some elbow room to work, and it looks like this car also has a power steering leak on this very hose right here. So what we'll do is we'll replace that hose as well and fix this leak for the wife also. Next, we are going to loosen up, we're going to take this bracket out of the way right here. We're going to loosen up that nut right there, not take it off all the way. We're going to take off that nut, loosen up that bolt, take off that nut. We're going to undo this belt tensioner of the alternator. And as you can see, here is the crank, and we're gonna take care of the power steering also. The shroud came off. There was a couple of 10 millimeter bolts right here, and then on the inside here, there's gonna be a pin that holds the shroud in place, and it looks like this. What you do, the head, you push it in all the way, you pull the pin out, then for install, you just push the pin back in. So let's continue. We got the lower shroud done. We got the engine mount out of the way. Now, mind you, before you start taking engine mounts off, what I did is I propped up the engine with a jack. Now, you're not lifting up the whole thing. All you do is you're holding it up so that it doesn't collapse on you while you're doing the job. Let's continue. I've already loosened up the clamps that hold the wire harness on the top cover of the the timing belt cover. I loosened up those clamps already so that we can move this out of the way as much as possible to continue the quest to make this happen, guys. Let's do it. I've removed the bracket that goes here. There it is right here. It has one hole, and it has a fork in the other end. So what you do, you remove this nut to take the bracket out, but you only have to loosen this part up. So the alternator, as you can see, it's loose. The belt came off. We loosened up this bolt right here for the power steering. It's a 12 millimeter, and the other one is, let's see if we can find it. It's right on top of the, here it is right there. I don't know if you guys can see it in the mirror. Let me see it? Here's your, here it is right there, you see it? There's your 12 millimeter bolt on the bottom. For crying out loud, guys, that thing was so tight. This is why you mount everything to torque specs. You don't just tighten it as if your life depended on it. This is how you break stuff. This is why you torque stuff. You don't have to be. It doesn't have to be. It's not supposed to be too loose. It's not supposed to be too tight. All right. So we also disconnected these clips here. One right here. One right here. One right here. Also for the. We're gonna prop this up with some zip ties or something so that we could get to all the 10mm bolts when the time comes to take this cover off. But next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the crank. This is a 22mm bolt, and I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do this. That's next. There it is, guys. That is the tool that you need to remove the crank pulley. It's a 22mm bolt. What I used is an impact because you're not gonna do it any other way that I know of without turning the crank at the same time. The bolts you're gonna need for the Polar are 8mm bolts, because this is a metric system car, by 1.25 thread count. And because this job has been done once before, actually this pulley is coming out rather easy. As a matter of fact, I can turn this with my hand. And that's it. Once the pulley is off, we will move on to the next thing. We're gonna put this massive bolt back on, and we are going to remove the top and bottom timing belt covers. Let's do this, guys. Okay, guys, we have taken the bottom timing belt cover off. Here it is right here. These are the 4 bolts for it. One of the bolts, to get to it, you will have to remove this bracket here. It has 2 12mm bolts, and they were on there. And those 12mm bolts are for the tensioning of the power steering pump, and it goes mounted in like so. You would need to take this bracket off anyway for when the time comes to remove the timing belt tensioner, which is right here, which we'll get to here shortly. We then proceed to remove this piece here. Be careful not to install it backwards. It only goes one way. You'll see that it has a slight lip, slight bent in it. That's the part that has to go on the outside. So this is the outboard. This is the inside of the belt right here. And like I said, it has a small lip. Be careful not to install it backwards. All right, let's proceed to remove the upper cover. Upper timing cover has been removed. Like I said, the one on the bottom has to come out first, and then the one on top comes off first. Here's your 6 10mm bolts that goes with it. Keep everything together, and of course, when the time comes, put everything back together. Top goes on first. We have the timing belt exposed. We're now going to proceed to remove the engine mount that attaches to the engine block. There are 12mm bolts, 2 bolts and 2 nuts. We're going to take off that next. And once that's done, folks, the bolt, you can see it's back on, and then we'll move this engine to top dead center, or to whatever position of the engine is that will align the cam, pulleys, and the crank at the bottom to specify the points marked on the back of the right here for this cam. There's another one on the other cam, which we'll get to here shortly. I'll show you. And yeah, let's take this engine mount off, and then we'll align this baby before the belt comes off. The engine mount has been removed. I also had to move out of the way the power steering pump all the way out so that I can actually, I don't know if you guys can see it, access the 2 12mm bolts for the tensioner. Here it is. You see the tensioner right there. It's a little different design. It does not have the vertical bolts like in a 3-liter. These ones are horizontal for the tensioner, as you can see. Yeah, top and bottom right there. Hold on. Let me see if I could help you with this. Okay. See that there right there? You have that bolt right there, and you have that bolt right there. Those 2 bolts are the ones for the tensioner. As you can see, the crank has been aligned. You have the divot right there for the new timing belt. Yeah, there's another divot right there that aligns with the divot on the engine block right there. And for the cam, here it is. You have the cam mark that is aligned with the back timing belt cover. The same thing is in the back there. You can probably see that the mark on the camera, but you won't be able to see the one on the cover. But trust me, it is aligned. We're now ready to remove. We're now ready to remove the belt tensioner, which is that one right there, 212mm bolts. Let's do it. All right, guys. The timing belt tensioner has been removed. The tension pulley is loose. Timing belt has been removed. Idle pulley. The cams and the crank are still aligned. I don't know if you could tell. Here, I'll do the same thing. Everything is still aligned. So it is on the bottom. We are looking good. So it is actually we'll be able to pull this out. Let's see it. Doesn't want to come out just yet. There it is. That's the mark I was telling you about. At the top of the here, the sprocket for the. This is the divot I was telling you about for the new timing belt, because the new timing belt has mark. You'll see that I moved the keeper for the timing belt out of the way. Everything is still aligned. The only thing I don't like, I want to share with you guys. I don't know if you can see it. See right here? Where we did this job last time, and it was done at the dealer, because I know the person who I bought the car from. He said that he had done a job. He always brought the car to the dealer or a trusted mechanic. But whoever did the timing belt last time, something is not right here, because this idle pulley is rubbing against the back cover. I don't know if you could tell, I don't know if you could see it. And that's a problem. That means it wasn't shimmed right. It's probably a washer missing in the back or something along those lines. Thankfully, nothing catastrophic happened. But yeah, let's be careful when we do the job. We're gonna put a shim or a washer in the back of this idle pulley to move this pulley out just a hair. So this is not happening anymore. All right, belt is out. We're now gonna remove this pulley here. We're gonna remove this pulley here. We're gonna remove the cam pulleys as well. And you'll notice that this cam pulley is installed backwards. This one has the lip in the back. This one has the lip in the front. Much like that keeper by the crank down here. The purpose for the belts, the cam pulleys to be installed backwards as they seem is to keep the timing belt aligned, much like the slip on a water pump right here does. Okay guys, let's make it happen. I just removed the plug from the radiator, which is down there. I don't know if you can see it. Here it is, that white one right there. That is how you dump the radiator coolant, and we're about to remove the water pump to replace it. And this is the tool that I purchased for the removal of the cam seals. I propped it in and I started turning, and it seems to be working. As you can see, it's removing the seals out. It does come with longer arms. The same tool I'll use for the removal of the crank seal at the bottom. This is the name of the tool right here if you're interested. No, they don't sponsor me for this job, but I figure I'll let you know what tools work and what tools don't, which brings me to my next point. I had some struggles that I wanted to speak with you about in removing of the cam pulleys. Those were a struggle, let me tell you. I had purchased a spanner wrench from AutoZone, and the brand was Duralast. And let me tell you, there was nothing Dura, nor did it last to get these cam pulleys out. As soon as I put some torque to it, those suckers bent, and was not happy about that. As a matter of fact, I panicked there for a moment. I didn't know how I was gonna remove the cam pulleys there for a minute. Thank God I have a friend that lives nearby that I work with. We're both business jets maintenance technicians and former car mechanics, so he had some spare tools, and this is the spanner wrench homemade, and this sucker is stout, that I ended up using to remove the rear cam pulley. The forward one, I managed to remove it by propping up a crowbar between the pulley arm and a 10mm bolt that holds the rear timing belt cover. The back one, on the other hand, I had to use the spanner wrench. Now, some people, there are different techniques that I've seen online. I've seen people use a pipe wrench with a chain and they wrap it around the cam pulley. I don't like that because it could possibly damage the teeth, the sprockets on the cam pulley. I've seen people loosen the cam bolts by just everything is still assembled. That's a good idea, but it begs the question: how are you going to crank it? How are you going to torque it when the time comes when a timing belt is installed and the time comes to torque the cam pulleys? And so the back one ended up being removed with a spanner wrench. Now, some people have suggested also using a let me see if I have it here set up. Here it is. Some people have suggested using a socket, meaning you slightly move the cam pulley a little bit, put the socket onto the bolt, and use that as your lock to lock the cam in place, or the cam pulley in place, before you break torque with a breaker bar and a 17mm socket. Now, another issue that I've learned is that this back bank of cylinders, the ones that are back here, the top dead center of piston one is actually the one at the forward end of the engine. And I learned while I was doing this job that back cam is loaded, and what that means is that one of the cylinders, the cam is pressing on a valve, be it exhaust or intake. And so while I was trying to break torque, it moved. And it moves in 1 degree or one end or another. I want to say about 30 or 40 degrees. So that was scary. I'm not going to tell you, because no one had mentioned anything about that in the videos on YouTube, nor did I read anything about it on the maintenance manual. Now, mind you, if a cam is loaded on a valve, that means that it's either exhausting fumes or it's intaking fresh fuel. What that means is that the piston is nowhere near that valve. So I'm not really worried that that might have caused the damage. And when it did slip, I managed to turn the cam pulley by hand to the designated area where it's marked on right here on the cover shield and where the cam pulley aligns. So we'll see what happens. I don't think anything, any damage did take place, but you know, we're about to find out. And the other issue was, as you already know, I spoke to you about earlier, is this groove that was carved by the idle pulley into the back shield. So what I'll do, here's the idle pulley right here. I'm gonna put a washer, which is about thick enough to move that pulley out just enough so that the pulley does not rub against the back shield, creating friction. Now, the back pulley does mount right here, if you can see it. It mounts right there. So what I did earlier, I put the bolt with the pulley through it, and I felt it through the back, and the bolt protrudes just enough by about 2-3 threads, which is the thickness of the washer. Then what I'll do, I'll put some Loctite, and I'll show you what kind of Loctite I'll be using during the assembly phase. So yeah, this is where we're at, guys. We're just about halfway there. This seems to be a good tool to remove these cam seals. I've seen people use screwdrivers, and I've seen people use some other cam seal tool. I don't know about a screwdriver, unless you have some tact and some skill. Then ideally what you don't want to do is gouge this cam so that when you install the seal back on, it is useless because it's still leaking oil. So this tool seems to be working so far. Let's remove this water pump and get to the bottom of this and finish this job. Let's do it. The water pump is removed. Here it is right here. I cleaned the contact surface, especially where the seals, which is this part right here where the rubber is. I passed a razor blade on it. Now, mind you, you're not going in there gouging. You're just being gentle and passing the blade to make sure that at least this inner contact surface is the part that is extremely clean. That is a machine surface. So, there you get a little bit of debris right here. Excuse me, guys. I seem to have a little bit of a cold this morning. Anyway, it has been cleaned. I used a little bit of Scotch-Brite too, a gray type. Here it is. A gray type Scotch-Brite to clean the surface after it had been the water pump had been removed. And it did leak a lot of fluid, as I stated earlier. Now what I did is I used an old shower curtain. The wife said, "Do not make a mess," so I'm gonna listen to the wife, and you should too. Don't make a mess. I use an old shower curtain, and here, the collection pan under it. This is the old water pump right here, and it is by, I don't know if you can see it, ASIN. That is the OEM supplier for Toyota. So guess what I did? I got it, and where is it? ASIN water pump. Guys, I always recommend to go with the OEM recommended products. You can't go wrong. It's besides, it gives you release of liability. It gives you peace of mind knowing that you use the proper products to do the job right. Also, as you can see, I tested out that tool and I did remove the cam seal, and it worked beautifully, and it didn't gouge the cam as well. So I'm going to continue to use that tool, and I will use it not only for that cam seal, but for the crank seal as well, because I mentioned earlier, it does come with longer arms as well. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, guys, let's put the water pump back on, and we'll talk about the torque specs for that in a short while. See you in a little bit. The timing belt, the water pump is installed. There's going to be 3 nuts and 3 bolts. You're going to torque it to a spec of right here. Water, can you see it? Water pump for the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder. 4-cylinder is 71 inch-pounds. Make sure that your torque wrench is calibrated clockwise and counterclockwise. And if you drop this thing, it's no longer calibrated. You're gonna have to get it calibrated again. What you're gonna do, you're gonna torque these nuts and bolts in a crisscross pattern as you would on a wheel of a car, and a wheel with a tire, a wheel tire, you know what I'm talking about. And you're gonna do it twice over. You're gonna do 71 inch-pounds, and so that you don't miss anything, you're gonna crisscross all 6 bolts and nuts, 71 inch-pounds at the second time. Okay, let's do it. The water pump is installed. The seals are going in, and I'm using a tool, a specific tool, to install these cam seals, and it is this one here. I got it from, I forgot who I got it from. I think it was from Amazon or Parts Geek. I don't know. Speaking of Parts Geek, that is who I got the parts from, as in terms of seals, water pumps, gaskets, and all the consumables, the timing belt. The drive belt, I got them down the street from Advanced Auto Parts. I thought I'd mention that. Again, these people don't sponsor me. So I just thought I'd let you know though who I got the parts from and who I got the tools from. Anyway, let's continue to put these cam seals on, and we'll remove the crank seal. Cam seals are in. They're both done. I used some engine oil, and that one actually back there was a little drier, so I used a dab of Vaseline just to get it damp so that it was sliding easy. And I put the crank seal, I don't know if you can see it, the crank seal is also in, and I used actually brass punches, gentle taps until the seal was all the way in. And you're gonna know when it's all the way in, it doesn't go in anymore. Then you're gonna do an inspection, make sure you don't dent anything. You're gonna be really gentle about this. Also, you're gonna pass your finger around it in the groove of where the seal goes in, and that'll tell you if it's an even install. Whereas this one, we use the tool, so we know. it went in as an even install. We're not gonna put in we're gonna put the sprocket back in. It's time for the timing belt, guys. We're gonna put the sprocket in for the main gear, the crank, and we're gonna put the back cover, and we'll talk about all the torque specs for that as well. Okay, crank sprocket is back on. This just slides right in. There's only one way it could go in. Also refreshing the marks so that when the time comes to install the timing belt, they're visible. Upper cover is installed. You have 6 10mm bolts. The torque for that, it's right here. Timing, I don't know if you can see it. Timing belt, let me shut this headlight off. Here it is, timing belt cover bolts. There's 3 covers, top, bottom, and the back. It is 76 inch-pounds. Let's do that. The 2 idler pulleys, according to what the maintenance manual calls for, they're installed. You have one mounted on the bracket, which is this one here. Mounted on the engine block is this one here. Just be careful when you install this one that you don't install it past this 10mm nut right here, but you install it to the left of it. So I put a little bit of Loctite on both of these pulleys and these studs right here. The studs, they do not provide a torque per se, but it does provide, the maintenance manual does provide a standard torque. These are size 8 studs with 1.25 thread count, and the standard torque is 168 inch-pounds. I put Loctite on them. The idler pulleys, the one that mounts on the bracket, which is the one on top, right here. Where are they? Let me shut this headlamp off. Idler pulleys, number 1 to the block is 25 foot-pounds. That's the one on the bottom. And the one to the bracket is 32 foot-pounds. Now, the Loctite that I use is a very mild Loctite, guys. It is a Loctite 242. It's blue in color. So that's what I use, so that when the time comes to redo this job, we're not running into problems. Also, as you can see, or I don't know if you can see, let's show some light. I shimmed out this pulley here so that it wouldn't rub against the back anymore. Now, this washer does not go under the head of the bolt, but it goes in the head behind the pulley against the bracket. And what that will do is it will bring the pulley out just enough so that it doesn't rub like it did over here. I couldn't believe that at the dealer of all places. This is installed, this is installed, studs are in. Next, we are gonna put the cam pulleys. Let's do it. We are almost there. I installed the new timing belt. The new timing belt has marks on it, right here, and if you can see it, and right here as well. And they're aligned with the marks on the cam pulley and the back cover. Same goes for the cam back there. And as for the bottom, here we go. The blue dot right there. As you can see, it's aligned with the mark on the timing belt as well. This timing belt only goes in one way, and on it there are arrows, and those arrows need to be pointing outwards. As you can see, let me see if I can highlight it for you. As you can see right under here, it's going to be arrows, and those arrows have to be forward of the engine. Okay, timing belt is in. These bolts are not tight yet. I will not be able to tighten them. Well, I could do them without the timing belt, but I do not want to run the risk and the danger of, again, the cam slipping again and falling off the lobe, which is the case in this one. This one is loaded. One of those 3 cylinders back there, as I mentioned earlier, one of the valves is open. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna install the timing belt first, all the way down. And then what we'll do is, including, when I say all the way down, with the tensioner on the bottom, which is gonna be going in next. Once that's installed, the tensioner and the pin from the new tensioner is released, and we could turn the crank and make sure that everything is aligned, and that's when we will tighten the cam pulleys with the spanner wrench. Okay, let's do it. All right, guys, this thing is aligning. Give the engine several spins. Maybe the timing belt is is not aligning with the notches anymore, but the notches on the cam pulleys are aligning where they are supposed to be aligning, as you can see. And so it is down on the crank here. See it? Top dead center. Yeah. See right there, that mark at the 12 o'clock position over there? Man, now I know why they advise to pull the spark plugs out. All right, now we can torque these babies right here. And these are torqued at, here they are. Camshaft, I don't know if you can see it. Here it is, camshaft pulley bolts. They're at 92 foot-pounds. Let's torque these babies at 92 foot-pounds. And we're gonna use what I have named the Savior. Because if it wasn't for this thing, man, we'd be screwed right now. All right, let's do it. 90, what do we say? 92 foot-pounds. Once that's torqued, we know that the engine spins properly. You know what I really like? Is also this, guys. Check this out. I'm super stoked about this right here. How it doesn't touch anymore. I am so happy. And the belt travels plenty on the pulley itself. All right, so once we torque these to 92 foot-pounds, we're gonna start putting the covers back, and we put the engine mount that mounts on the engine block back, and we'll talk about all those torques as well. Let's do it. Actually, the engine mount that mounts onto the block goes on first before the covers go on. There's 2 bolts and 2 nuts. These are size 8 bolts with a 12 millimeter head, and these are size 8 by 1.25 threads. Now, there is no torque in the procedures themselves for the torque. It talks about engine mount bolts, but these are for size 10 bolts. So all you do is go to the standard torques at the beginning of this book, which hopefully bears repeating. Get yourself one of these if you're going to be working on a 3MZ-FE or 1MZ-FE engine. I believe they're the same thing. And again, size 8, it's from 14 to 21 foot-pounds. I went more on the lower end because I'm not comfortable torquing these bolts at 21 foot-pounds. So I went to 14 foot-pounds times 12 is 168 inch-pounds. So that is the torque that I used for, again, these 2 nuts and 2 bolts for the engine mount that mounts onto the engine block. Now we could put the covers on. The top timing belt cover is on, but the bolts are not tightened yet. What we're gonna do first, before we put the bottom timing belt cover on, we install this. You see this lip? Remember what I told you at the beginning of the video? Make sure that the lip sits on the outside as a guide to the timing belt. So this goes in like this. Again, lip on the outside. We put this in. We're gonna put the timing belt cover for the bottom afterwards, and all the bolts that are 10 millimeter, the head is 10 millimeter. It's torqued to, I believe, let's see what the torque was again. 76 inch-pounds. 76 inch-pounds all the way around. So let's take care of that. Okay, so after the timing belt cover was installed, we installed the crankshaft pulley, harmonic balancer, and we repositioned the power steering pump. Make note of how this bracket is installed to tighten the belt, because you could easily confuse it and mount it backwards. These are size 10 bolts with a 12 millimeter head, so the torque on these will be 28 to 40 foot-pounds. So goes for, let's see if we can get it. See that bolt? Let's see if see that bolt on the top of the. Maybe we can do it better this way. There's a bolt that runs across the power steering pump, and it tightens all the way over here. That's what holds this, props this thing up. Let's see if we could give you a better angle. You see that bolt right here? This is it right here. The one on top of the pulley. That's also a size 10 shank with a 12 millimeter head. That took its torque to 28 to 40 foot-pounds once you managed to tighten the belt. Now there was this kid, I like this trick, about once the belt, you could twist it at 90 degrees and no more than that. That's tight enough. However, the torque specs on the maintenance manual for the tightening of belts varies based on new belts or old belts. Now these are new belts, so we'll have to see about that. If you can see it right here, where is it? Well, I can't find it right now, but there was different tensions for the I can't find it right now, but anyway, I did see that there were different tensions for the belts, the power steering belt, and the alternator air conditioning belt. If you were to replace them and make them anew, same thing here. I had to loosen up this bolt down here. This is 168 inch-pounds to install this bracket. This is a size 10 shank for 28 to 40 foot-pounds. Same goes here. This is for the engine mount though. This for here for the alternator. 28 to 40 foot-pounds once the belt is tightened. I gotta tell you guys, I'm disappointed to announce that I couldn't get this bolt to torque to 159 foot-pounds. I tried with putting the polar bolts in here. I ended up bending it. I don't know if you can see it. I ended up bending the bolt in the attempt to torquing it with this massive torque wrench right here that goes up to 200 foot-pounds. But guys, I'm sorry, 250 foot-pounds. Couldn't do it. So I ended up using the trusty impact wrench until give it a few squeezes until the bolt stopped turning. And I did use the same Loctite that I've been using all along. So we're gonna tighten these belts so that they don't turn any more than 90 degrees when you twist them. And yeah, we're gonna cinch these belts down. But then once that's done, we're gonna tighten the alternator bolts. Again, 28 to 40 foot-pounds for the size 10 shanks. And they're all size 10 shanks. And then this is just to pull the belt back. And then there's this other bolt right here. I don't know if you can see it, right under the tightening bolt. This one right here. This one is a size 8. This gets torqued to 168 inch-pounds once we are done. Then once the belts are cinched, the power steering pump is tightened and so is the alternator. We will install the front engine mount and the stabilizer bar, top strut stabilizer bar, and we call this job just about done. We'll reinsert these clips right here, which we technically do right now. We will we'll refill the cooling system, and we'll talk about that later. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I was going to tell you guys a little secret once we were done about this job. So stick around. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. Let's do it. All right, guys. Home stretch. The belt tensioner. The belt tension was done on the power steering as well. The bolts for the power steering ended up tightening at 35 foot-pounds. Put the shroud back in. Mind you, these are all size 10 shanks with size 12 bolt heads. So it's 25 to 40 foot-pounds at 35 foot-pounds. The shroud just basic, just nice and snug, nothing crazy for these torques right here. They're 10 millimeter bolts. And then don't forget this, the pin back there. And you just insert it. Here it is right here. You just, let me see if I get, here it is. You insert it, and then you press the pin in to lock it in place. Engine mounts. So we installed the engine mounts. These are all standard torques. This too will be the stabilizer bar for the front suspension will be a 40 foot-pounds of torque. This is a good tool to have, guys. I recommend you get one of these. So these will be also 40 foot-pounds of torque. Engine mount, 40 foot-pounds, 40 foot-pounds, 40, back here, where is it? 40 foot-pounds, 40 foot-pounds. This one here is a size 8 bolt, 168 inch-pounds. Right here, 40 foot-pounds. And that's it. I mentioned I put a new belts on this car as well. These are the belts right here for the power steering pump and the alternator air conditioning pump. And I had mentioned to you earlier that the tension for the belts is higher when the belts are new, and it's in chapter 1, section 3 of again, you guys should get one of these if you're working on this car. Right here, alternator belt. Let's see if you can give you a better. Let's see. Well, here it is, right here. Alternator belt and the power steering pumps. This is not the torque of the bolts, but the tension. And I don't have a tensiometer for the belt, so we use that trick that kid used. All you need to do is flip the belt 90 degrees. As long as it's nice and snug, you'll be fine. And besides, these are new belts. They're going to stretch a little bit. All we have left to do now is fill up the coolant and plug in the negative terminal on the battery. Start it up. Let it run a little bit. Oh, we're going to put the wheel back, of course. And that's 76 foot-pounds for the lugs as per procedures right here. I don't like this thing that if here it is, wheel lugs. I don't know if you can see it. Here it is, wheel lugs, 76 foot-pounds. And that's pretty much it, guys. We're almost done. We're almost done. Hang in there, and I'll tell you that little secret that I was going to tell you about in the beginning of this adventure we went through together. Let's fill up the coolant and plug in the battery and put the wheel back on. We did it, guys. We did it. Got the car off the jacks. Torque the wheel, 76 foot-pounds. A couple of things I didn't mention. Make sure that you connect your ground. This is one of them right here, and the other ground is right under here, which we had to undo to get the job done, especially when we had to get the spanner wrench in here. Topped off the coolant with the OEM recommended coolant. I like to use OEM recommended. This is Prestone, and it's for Toyotas, Lexus, and Scions. It's already repeating myself 3 times. It's already mixed 50-50. It takes 9.75 quarts to fill out the system. I have 8 quarts here, and the rest you fill up with distilled water, guys. Distilled water. Also, a quick run on the tools that I used for the job. Outside of ratchets and wrenches and your basic sockets and whatnot, these are the specialty tools you're gonna need to get this job done. Torque wrenches, 200 inch-pounds. This goes up to 100 foot-pounds, 150 foot-pounds. This goes up to 250 foot-pounds. It's mainly for the bolt on the main crank pulley, the harmonic balancer. Pulley puller, seal installer, seal remover, maintenance manual. This is what I use to measure the size of the bolts, and in the back it also has the thread counts for standard and metric. Impact, and the savior, also known as a spanner wrench, guys. And here we go. Thanks for watching this with me. Let's get the moment of truth. I wanted you to be a witness of this moment. Let's see it. She runs, baby, she runs. That's it, guys, we did it. And you were there all along. Let's shut it off. It doesn't need to run right now. We do need to place a sticker on the timing belt cover. The car has 186,000 miles, 186, 119. Let's shut it off. And I mentioned to you at the beginning of this video that I had a little secret that I wanted to share with you in regards to this job. Truth is, guys, I've never done this job. That was my first time doing it, which goes to show, if I can do it, so can you. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. Just gotta make sure you pay attention to detail and you have the proper tooling. Take your time, read the maintenance procedures. If you need to, watch a couple of videos on YouTube and you can get it done just like I did. Thank you for watching, guys. It was an enormous pleasure doing this job with you, and we will see you at the next video. Take care.